Okay, hi guys. Hope you guys are all doing well, inshallah. Welcome back to my channel. If it is your first time here, my name is Hanan and welcome to the channel. Today we are going to talk. We're really going to talk because I know that some of you guys are watching this video feeling so tired, and not just physically tired, but mentally tired and emotionally tired from caring too much. You care what your friends think. You care what your coworkers think. You care if your family doesn't approve of the decisions that you're making, if you come across the wrong way. So in today's video, we're going to talk about how you can just free yourself from caring so much about what other people think about you, and really and honestly freeing yourself from the pressure of being perfect and overperforming in order to make other people feel comfortable. So if you have been feeling overwhelmed, if you feel extremely exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally, or you just feel like you're not living a life that you're meant to live and you're living for other people, then this video is for you. Because the less you care about what doesn't matter, the more energy you have for what actually does. But of course, before we start this video, a quick reminder not to forget to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy these videos and you find them really helpful. And without further ado, let's get this video started. Do you ever feel like you're so afraid to disappoint people, even if it means disappointing yourself? Caring about what other people think is a very normal thing. A lot of us go through it. I've been a person who has dealt with this for a very long time, where I cared so much about what other people thought about me that I started performing in my life and really living a life that I thought was ideal based on other people's perceptions of what they thought was good for me. What ended up happening was I found myself performing. And it wasn't until I started feeling really exhausted and tired that I was able to pinpoint what the problem was. I cared too much about what other people thought about me. And the first step to overcoming not caring about what people think about you is actually recognize when you're over caring. This is actually probably one of the more important steps before we dive into everything else, because before you can actually change anything, you need to actually notice it. Caring too much or over caring is not always going to be something that is obvious. Sometimes it will look like, for example, being very silent and not contributing or saying things when you want to say something, or becoming so agreeable and not learning how to actually say no to things, or rehearsing conversations before you actually have them with people. Do you find yourself constantly filtering your words out of fear of how other people may react to you? Or you find yourself apologizing for things that you didn't actually do? Now, this one definitely sounds like something that I did, because I used to overly apologize. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I can't make it today because of XYZ. I will say it might be a Canadian thing, because Canadians, it is in our blood, okay, to over apologize. It's part of our culture. We're just constantly saying sorry. I don't know if you know any Canadians, but it is also low-key a part of our culture. It's taken a very long time to like fix that and work on it. I'm still working on it, I will not lie, but I've gotten much better at not apologizing for things that I don't need to apologize for, and just apologizing when I need to apologize and knowing my wrongs and my rights, if that makes sense. A lot of us were actually conditioned to care about how other people view us. This is especially common for people who grew up in environments where culture is so important. How people view you, how your community views you, and you've been conditioned to really care about what other people think. You go outside and you're very careful and very calculated about how you move, how you speak, how you walk. Everything is really shaped based on how other people view you, and just the fear of being perceived incorrectly and the fear of, tarnishing your reputation. Now, that is more relatable for people who grew up in environments where culture is very much centered in their lives, where their parents have made them believe that, reputation is so important. And so you care a lot more about what people think about you because you've been conditioned to think that way. You may grow up feeling like your needs were ignored. You may grow up feeling like conflict is very scary and dangerous, speaking up about something that is important to you, putting down boundaries. A lot of the times it can be difficult to do these in these types of homes. You learn that love is through pleasing, pleasing your parents, pleasing your uncle, your aunt, your grandma, whoever it is. You learn that is what love is. It's people pleasing. And safety for you in those environments means being a lot more agreeable, just saying yes to everything and not ever saying no. My eldest daughters also know exactly what this feels like, especially eldest daughters who grow up in these very culturally centered homes. And so without even realizing it, you start to live a life where you really care about being accepted, doing things to make other people accept you. But I just want to make one thing clear. Just because you grew up in environments like this, just because you've been conditioned to believe that this is the way that your life should be lived, does not mean that this is who you are. And it can actually change the minute that you pick up on these changes in your behavior. This person that you became growing up was who you needed to be in order to survive those environments. And now that you're grown, now that you are trying to create a safe space for yourself, it is time to come home to yourself. It is time to figure out who you are. And you know what? Sometimes over caring will disguise itself as someone who cares a lot, as someone who's thoughtful, as someone who's kind, as someone who's overly sensitive or easygoing. But the reality is, if you really dig deeper into what overcaring looks like, it's none of these things. It is actually fear. It's fear that if you do not soften your actual truth, somebody may leave in your life. If you choose to show up as you really are, it comes with the risk of being misunderstood or even rejected. And the first thing that you really want to do is start by really asking yourself, when did I become honest with myself to be accepted by others? You know, think about a moment in your week where you really filtered your words and changed the way that you think and the way that you speak just to make other people feel accepted. What would you have said differently if you were not afraid of being judged? Next is really learning to let go of the things that you can't actually control. When you do this, this is where your true sense of peace and fulfillment will actually start. Being able to just let go. Most of our emotional suffering doesn't actually come from what is, but it actually comes from trying to control what isn't ours to manage. You cannot control how someone else chooses to see you. Everybody has their own narrative. Sometimes people will choose to see you in a negative light, even if you haven't done anything. Sometimes people may not just vibe with your energy. They may not vibe with you in general and just have their own stories that they've made up about you in their heads. That is completely fine. It has nothing to do with you. You know who you are. You know how you present yourself. You know the traits that you possess. You know how you share yourself to the world. How other people perceive you has nothing to do with you. You cannot control other people's thoughts and how other people choose to see you. And you also cannot control the outcome of their decision. However, what you can control is how you see yourself. And you can also control your own energy. Just really start paying attention to where you find that your power is leaking. If you find yourself spending hours and hours and hours on conversation that may never happen, you find yourself over-explaining your side, over-explaining, hoping that someone will see your heart and see your intentions on why something was done. And you find yourself, you're tiptoeing around other people, you're tiptoeing and being so careful about what it is that you're saying and hoping that they'll react in the way that you want them to. All of those behaviors are just a trap. You are allowed to let go of what you can't fix. Not every single situation that you're faced with in your life needs to be resolved, needs to have a solution, needs to be explained, needs to be perfect. Some things are just meant to be released and not repaired. You just have to allow things to be. That is just the way life is. And when you do let go, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're giving up on that thing or, you're losing yourself in any way. If anything, you're choosing yourself and putting yourself first because you're choosing where to put your energy and you're not wasting your energy and draining your energy constantly thinking about things that you don't need to think about. It's making the active choice and realizing that, hey, you know what? My energy is sacred. Why am I wasting my energy overthinking a certain situation when I could be redirecting that energy into something else, redirecting that energy into a hobby, into seeing my friends, into doing whatever it is that you enjoy doing. Stop trying to waste your time and energy controlling things that you have no control over. Another thing I would really recommend is just finding tools and things that worked for you. And you know what? Sometimes to even recognize what you're trying to control and what you're really trying to hold on to, you need a safe space to be able to process all of those emotions. And that's something that I had to learn the hard way. I started therapy at one of the lowest points in my life, when I felt stuck, when I felt overwhelmed, and like my own thoughts were louder than anything else. Therapy gave me language. It helped me to understand patterns, unpack old wounds, and learn how to support myself in healthier ways. Now, it didn't fix everything overnight, but it did give me clarity, tools, and most importantly, a safe space to truly be honest with myself. That's why today's paid partner is BetterHelp. It is one of the world's largest online therapy platforms and makes mental health support accessible. You don't have to commute, you don't have to sit in a waiting room, you don't even have to leave your house. You can get matched in as little as 48 hours to a therapist that matches your needs. Whether you're dealing with anxiety, relationship challenges, low self-worth, or you just need someone to talk to regularly. BetterHelp offers video calls, live chat, phone sessions, and you can message your therapist anytime. And if it's not the right fit, you can switch therapists at no extra cost. Investing in your mental health is not a luxury, it is a necessity. So if you feel like you've been carrying too much or you're stuck in your head, take this as your sign. You can start today by using the link in my description, betterhelp.com/Hanan, for 10% off your first month. You deserve support and healing is allowed to be gentle. Learning to practice saying no without actually needing to have an explanation. This is something that is really difficult for a lot of people. Like for me, for example, I used to be very quick at saying yes to things. I just would say, okay, yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem. But it was a problem. Like I would go home and be like, why did I say yes to this thing when I know I don't want to actually do it? When I know that the reaction was very much an instinctual reaction, but it wasn't something that I actually wanted to do. And I knew that if I did this thing, it would make me feel exhausted. it was taking away my time from doing other things that I wanted to do. For example, if you get invited out, not having to say, I'm so sorry I wasn't able to make it to your hangout. I couldn't make it because of XYZ. Simplify it by saying something like, I'm not able to make it for your event, but I hope you have a really great time. Very simple. You don't need to explain. And if that feels uncomfortable for you doing something like that, just really sit in that discomfort and let yourself feel it. That discomfort means something good. It just means that you're doing something different and your mind and your body are getting used to it. Being aware is everything. And if you are a person who is self-aware, you will understand that yes, you cannot fix what you can't face. One of the things that you can actually do is keeping track of your behaviors on your phone, right? Now, it might sound a little bit much or a little dramatic. When you actually write it down, you'll be able to see those patterns and the changes in your behavior. Taking all of that data and putting it in your notes app and kind of keeping track of that will really help you to understand where those patterns are and how you can really pick up on those patterns so you don't repeat that same behavior. A few practical steps that could really help you with getting through this is really checking in with your body after interactions. Do you feel tired? Do you feel exhausted? Do you feel sad? Do you feel relaxed? Do you feel tense? All of that is data that you want to collect. Also, before saying yes to something, whether it's getting invited to an event, whether it's someone asking you to do something, pause for about 3 seconds and just give yourself a minute before you actually respond and ask yourself, is this a full body yes? Like, I want to do this, or am I doing this because it's going to make the other person feel content and feel happy? If you feel a rush or you feel a little bit panicked when you set a boundary to other people, being uncomfortable or sitting in discomfort is not something that is dangerous. It's something that's bringing you into your safe zone. The important thing here is actually understanding when you feel like you care too much, when you feel like you're doing the absolute most, and tracking that. Now, I know it might feel like a lot or it might feel like too much tracking that, but I promise you it actually works, which is why I'm telling you to do it. And a great way of doing that is keeping it on your phone through your notes app or even tracking it through your journal, whatever works for you. But the idea here is the more that you're able to track this and collect data about yourself, the more you're able to analyze where those changes can be made and what those patterns and behaviors look like. The next thing is really understanding that most people aren't thinking about you and actually don't care. I want you to just let this sink in for a second and really sit with this. And it's not because you're not important and it's not because they don't care about you. It's just that everybody is in their own world. Everybody is dealing with their own issues and their own problems, and everybody is the main character of their own story. 9 times out of 10, you are not crossing their mind and they're not thinking about you 24/7. They are just caught up in their own stories and trying to figure out life just like you are. And we all live inside of our heads. Sometimes our brains will lie to us and create stories for things that aren't actually true and aren't based on reality. So for example, your mind may make up a story about how someone may view you, a certain way that someone may have looked at you, things like what other people may be thinking. And then we take those stories that our minds have made up and treat them as if they're fact, when the reality is they are not. All of that is noise, and you have the power to be able to manage that. You are not being watched in the way that you think you are. When you have this anxiousness and you're harboring all of these feelings and emotions because you're constantly thinking about what others think of you, you're living life walking on eggshells. And when you're so used to walking on eggshells and you're always so careful about everything you do, your entire life is so calculated because you're thinking about other people's perceptions about you, you are not living a life. You're not living authentically. You're living a very performative life. Now let's talk a little bit about something called the spotlight effect. This is a psychological term that is used to describe how we tend to believe that we're being noticed a lot more than we actually are. So in other words, we assume that all eyes are on us. We assume that everybody's looking at us, everybody's thinking about us. How often is it that you will replay an awkward moment that happened to somebody else? It is very rare, right? Because you're too busy replaying your own. But yet we walk around believing that every single person that's outside is dissecting our every move, our every word, our every anything. Like, we just really believe that people are dissecting every single thing that we do. Having this belief really keeps us stuck, because what happens is it makes us overanalyze, over-obsess, and really second guess ourselves on things that we don't even need to be thinking about. As we start to really edit ourselves and fine tune ourselves to avoid judgment for things that are probably not even happening. They're thinking about their own insecurities. They're thinking about their next task. They're thinking about their own ambitions, their own goals. They are in their own story, and they are the main characters of their own stories, just like you are. Once you're able to actually internalize this truth, the minute you realize that nobody's thinking about you the way that you think they are, you're free. You can live your life and do as you please. Try to really reframe your mindset. When you feel like you're getting judged, ask yourself, what story am I making up right now? More often than not, we're actually reacting to our own projections and we're not reacting to reality. Pick your battles wisely. Not every single thing that you do deserves your energy. Not every comment needs a reply. When you start to care less, what you're really doing is choosing where you want to care more. There is a very special kind of power that comes with having discernment. You don't owe a reaction to every slight change in your life. And you also don't need to work extra hard to prove your worth in every room that you're in. And if everyone's opinion defines what your mood is going to look like, you will always feel like you're being pulled in 100 different directions. Choosing your battles means to step out of reactive living. It's really making the decision and deciding that your peace is a lot more important than your pride in moments of friction. You really need to sit and ask yourself, if I am to engage with this thing, will it really matter to me 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, even tomorrow? Does this thing matter? If it doesn't, and you truly know that it doesn't matter whether you engage in that thing or not, and it's not worth your energy, let it go. People will misunderstand you anyways. Even if you go the extra mile to try to explain yourself, people will already have their own narratives, and it's not your job to sit there and try to over-explain. It's not. And when you feel triggered about something, really pause and ask yourself, am I reacting because I feel triggered? Or am I reacting because this is really bothering my ego? And there's also a lot of maturity that comes with choosing to stay quiet even when you really want to defend yourself, because at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees everything and he's the one who judges everything. So you just need to live your life and keep it pushing. There is also a lot of wisdom that comes in knowing that not every fire is yours to put out. It's just not. You did not come on this earth in order to be liked and to change yourself just to be accepted by other people. And if you keep living a life waiting for applause, you're going to slowly die inside, clapping for everybody else while abandoning yourself. And every single time that you choose to say yes to other people, you're saying no to yourself. By doing that, you're actually teaching yourself that you don't matter, that you're not important, and that you don't value yourself because you're constantly putting other people before you. What does that do for you? Nothing. You can quite literally be the softest, kindest, most thoughtful person on earth, and someone is still going to roll their eyes when they see you. You can be the most smartest, successful person in the room, and someone will still look at you and think that you're not good enough. What I'm trying to say here is that no matter what you do, people will always have their own ideas about you and who they think you are. You can't control that, and it's not your job to. And you will never be able to stop that fear of judgment unless you walk right into it and realize when you're experiencing it that it's just noise. That's it. Every single time you find yourself spiraling because of someone else's opinions about you, I want you to just pause for a second and ask yourself, if these people hated me, would I still be okay? The answer has to be yes, because your worth is not up for debate. How other people see you doesn't define who you are as a person. You are not responsible for everyone's comfort. You are one person and you take up space just as much as everybody else does. And when you are an overcarer, it makes you a caretaker of people's feelings. And sometimes you're doing that even when they haven't asked you to do that. You just feel inclined to. People are allowed to be uncomfortable. You do not need to fix that. And you do not need to soften yourself in order to be digestible for other people either. Just let people think what they want. Let people sit down with their own thoughts on how they view you, because you cannot control that. You are not here on this earth in order to be understood by everyone. That is not our purpose on earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't put us on this earth to please other people. We are all created so beautifully, so uniquely. There are traits that I have that you may not have, and there are traits that you have that I may not have. And that is such a beautiful thing. Why are you molding yourself in order to be digestible and be accepted by other people? What does that do for you? Absolutely nothing. You're just living a life that's not raw and real to you. Why are you chasing after people trying to fix that? Trying to fix how they view you? You can't control their thoughts. What is in someone else's mind is none of my business, and it's none of yours. Let people think how they want to think. You do not owe the world a version of yourself that keeps everyone else comfortable and keeps you invisible. Why? You really need to work on grieving the need to be liked by everybody. I know it's painful and it can be difficult, especially when you have this desire to be accepted by everyone, because you are a beautiful person. There are things about you that make you absolutely incredible, and your heart is pure and beautiful and amazing. But freedom will live on the other side of that grief, and you really just have to get over that and just understand that not everybody's gonna like you. That's just what it is. You can sit there for hours in front of someone trying to make them understand you, trying to make them understand your heart and your intentions as to why you did something, and they will still look you in the eye and say, "Me not care. I do not care. I still don't like you." What are you gonna do? Are you gonna shake them to try to change their mind? No. people will still choose to misunderstand you. If your truth and your day-to-day life and your decisions make someone else uncomfortable, that does not mean that you are wrong. It just means that you're finally sitting down and being real with yourself and presenting who you actually are to the world. And the stronger that you become, the more uncomfortable other people will get, especially those who benefited from your silence. You can still be soft. You can still care deeply about people, but not about everything and not about everyone. There's only so much that you're able to carry. You only have the capacity for so much. You will never ever reach your full potential by being handcuffed to other people's opinions of you. The next time you really find yourself thinking so hard about how other people see you and your reputation and other people's opinions and whether or not you're being judged or if you're being misunderstood, I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions. 1, is this my job to fix? 2, will this matter to me in 5 years? And 3, is this decision costing me my peace right now? If the answer is no to any of this, let it go. Every single time that you make an assumption, you suffer twice. Once from the event and again from the meaning that you assign it. When we make assumptions about things, that is where our anxiety will really thrive. Our brains crave certainty. So what it ends up doing is really filling in the blanks. But a lot of the times those blanks are just worst case scenarios. And unless we work hard on interrupting those patterns, we will end up living a lot more in our heads rather than in our truth. So just remember, like I said, that the reality is people are living their own lives. They have their own mood, they have their own distractions, and 99.99999% of the time, it has nothing to do with you. So stop assuming things. And instead of assuming, you have the power to actually ask and clarify. You can communicate. Don't just sit there and stew in silence and come up with assumptions and let your brain spiral when you don't need to. You do not have to sit there and entertain every single anxious thought that visits you. And point blank period, not everything deserves your energy. Redirect that energy to things that are more important. When you don't know what you stand for, when you don't know what your values are, when you don't know your purpose as to why you're here, and when you don't know what matters the most to you, you will start to care about everything. And that's the problem. The problem is you do not have an anchor. You do not have a compass that is guiding you. And that's why you find yourself shape-shifting constantly and being different people in different rooms. And I'll just end off saying this, that respectfully, you are the only person that can wake up every single morning and make the decision in terms of how you want to live your life. What is the blueprint of your life going to look like? You're the only one that can make that decision. If you choose to wake up every day caring about how other people see you, over caring about other people's opinions, that is the life that you are going to live. You are going to always be exhausted. You are going to shape a life based on what other people think that is best for you, rather than living in your truth of what you want for yourself. Do you want that? Or do you want to wake up every single morning feeling sure about the decisions that you're making, feeling content with your life decisions, feeling happy with who you are as a person? What decision are you going to make, and what decision do you feel is best for you? You know what the answer is. And at the end of the day, no one can make that decision but you. So yeah, that is pretty much all I have to say. I hope that you guys found this video helpful. If you did, of course, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. There are many more videos coming soon, inshallah. Share with someone who you feel like needs to hear this message as well. I hope that you guys have the most incredible week, and I will see you guys in the next one. Love you guys so much. Bye.